Tidal Blades Banner Festival. This is a game set in a fantasy world. It is not the first game in the Tidal Blades family, but it is the first one that I played, so I'll start by reviewing this one. The theme is a bit fuzzy, so to speak, because we're gonna race around that ring with our super awesome motorboats, but also at the same time we're trading with merchants on the decks. Well, mechanically the game combines card-driven mechanics of the trick-taking family. There's a sort of idea there that is very similar because we're going to compare cards and some suits are going to be more valuable than others, and within the same suit the higher values are going to be more valuable than others. So there's a trick-taking like element, but then there are going to be rewards that work mainly as an area majority kind of thing, with also some racing elements thrown in. So at the center of the board we had the ring where the motorboats are gonna move, and there are 8 spaces in that ring. Up there you see a wooden game piece that represents the trade gate, which has important effects, including how far the motorboats will travel. If there's a game effect that lets you move to the gate, well, then you go there. And that means that, of course, that can have a huge difference whether that is the effect, and that moved me by 4, but if I get that same effect right now, that only moves me by 1. Now, if you get the effect of moving to the gate where you're sitting there, you're gonna perform a full lap and end up exactly where you were, which is the best possible thing for the specific traveling mechanic, because every time you pass the 8 space, you complete a lap, and you keep track of the laps that you completed using this deck of cards. Every time you complete a lap, you flip one face up. These cards are in ascending numerical order, and so the more laps you complete, the better is the number that is showing, and the one that will be showing at the end of the game, may even be 28, will be the score for that part of the game. But then you also see that there are, again, docks that depart from each of the quadrants, and again, the position of the gate indicates which one is the active quadrant. On top of that, on top of like activating certain docks rather than others, the presence of the gate indicating the active quadrant also tells you which suits are more valuable. There are 4 suits indicated by color: yellow, blue, purple, and orange. And if the gate is there, the strongest suit is yellow, the weakest one is orange, and these other 2 are in the order that you see them there. Basically, the game is super simple. Each round, each player is gonna play a card from hand, and the cards are in the 4 suits that we saw, with values between 0 and 9. Each player plays a card face down, commits to one face down. Suppose these are the cards that my 2 opponents have placed, and then we reveal them, and then we score them. We see what is the value here. So every yellow card will beat every blue card will beat every purple will beat every orange, and within the same color only, then the higher value beats the lower value. And again, different sectors will change that hierarchy there. So right now we have a yellow card, and that's the only yellow card that wins. No blue, then we have a purple and an orange. So this is the scoring. This is the highest value, the player with the highest value, second highest, and lowest value. Suppose that these cards had been played in this sector, then 3 yellow beats 1 yellow, and that beats 3 blue. So that really is the engine of the game. You'll have a hand of 8 cards. Everybody plays one, reveal, and rank them. Also, depending on the number of players, you may have dummy cards that are drawn from the deck, again, to indicate notional players that should be there and should be throw their cards in. And so you're still looking at the dummy cards to rank the cards. So after you determine if you were the highest, the lowest, or somewhere in the middle, then players will get the corresponding bonuses. If you had the highest value in that ranking, then you advance your watercraft to the trade gates position, which again can be awesome. If that's the case, I just completed a full lap. Awesome. And remember, I get to flip one of these scoring cards. But if I win when the situation is like that, meh, very anticlimactic. And you think, well, don't try to win then. Well, what if it's later in the round and I only have yellow cards left? Then my chances of winning when I'm in the quadrant are very high. If you're the lowest player, let's start from that one. If you're the lowest player, then you perform the action at the bottom of the card. And that's the only way of performing those actions there. Otherwise, it just pretend it's not there. And you're like, wow, okay, I wanted to go last because this way I get an awesome effect. But a lot of these effects, they're still very contingent on random things that may just not be there, such as advance your watercraft one space for each region, for each of your banners in this region. And again, there will be game effects that will place banners there. But maybe that effect is in an area where you don't have any banners, so you just get the minimum, which is pretty underwhelming. Other effects may be gain a fruit and once a watercraft 2 spaces. That could be good. Fruits are good. We'll see what those are. But advancing the watercraft, again, may or may not be good for you. So a lot of these effects are still pretty random, especially when they're based on, again, the banners you have in a quadrant, because there's just too much randomness for you to be able to plan. Oh, I'm gonna put a lot of banners there, then I'm gonna move around, and when I'm there, then I'm gonna play that card, and I know I'll get that effect. Very, very hard to plan that way. Unlikely. So when you get those rewards, very often the rewards will feel pretty similar because it'll be like meh. If you're in the middle, that is when you place a banner in the nearest qualifying space available on your quadrant. And you check the qualification based on the empty spaces. So, for example, the first empty space would be odd, and that doesn't qualify. And if I don't have or it may be that has been taken by someone, including possibly me earlier. So you're looking at the qualifications of spaces that have not been taken by banners yet. In this case, say since the odd even doesn't apply here, and this is a yellow card, I continue until I find the yellow one, and that happens to be available, so I place it there. If I had to place a banner and there's no qualifying space, then it goes all the way to the bottom, to the end of the track. This is called the tower. Incidentally, see, the board is divided into 4 quadrants. So each quadrant had its own track, but then 2 of the tracks converge on towers. And the towers, different from the other spaces, can take any number of pieces. Also, the pieces stay from round to round. At the end of a round, we clear the tracks, but we leave the towers here because they will help us for scoring. We mentioned fruits. There are game effects that will give you fruits. There is the pool of fruits available depends on the number of players. With fewer players, going to be smaller. More players, more available. But as fruits are assigned to players, at some point the pool will be empty. And when the pool is empty, that is when we have a festival. Hooray! Meaning the player with the most fruits will get to score a point for each fruit that they have. The other players that have fewer will get to score half a point for each. And you use these lovely cardboard tokens here to keep track of points that are scored that way. That's the idea. That's the idea. You play cards every turn, and then you compare the rankings. Also, at the end of a turn, once we are taking our rewards, the player who had the lowest value gets to move the gate by a number of spaces between 1 and 4. And again, there's a lot that may go on there because, say, right now, that would be pretty good for green if it is there, because by winning a single round, green almost completes a full lap. but then I'm gonna be annoying, and I'm not green. I want to move the gate there. So now green by winning, only advances that way. So that's the idea. You play a round until everybody has played all of their 8 cards, which means the last round you just had to play whatever card is left. Then you count majority for here, you clean things, so you score points, and then you play 2 more rounds exactly like that. At the end of the game, there's going to be a last festival, meaning we score fruits one more time. Player with the highest score wins the game. I had pretty high expectations for Tidal Blaze Banner Festival, starting from just looking at the components as I opened the box. The production is so nice. I love that art. I love those wooden bits, the banners, really nice. The fruit also shiny, little specks of whatever golden thing is in there. Really nice. But then I played the game, and that's when things started going not so well. Now, I'm okay with point salad games in which you get some points every turn, and this game feels like a reward salad because you're going to get something every turn. You get to advance, you get to place a banner, you get to move the gate and use your thing, use the bottom ability. But then there has to be a balance between giving the player something every turn and yet those rewards feeling meaningful and feeling different from one another. After a couple of rounds, and the first couple of rounds I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm going to use this card and that card, etc., etc., etc. And then I realized that good play, poor play, reading the opponent correctly, tricking them, bluffing, double bluffing, didn't really change much because I would get to place a banner in a place that gives me a fruit or in another place that gives me a fruit. A place is slightly better, a place is slightly not so good. I use a bottom effect that since I cannot fulfill the requirement gives me like one thing. Or since I set up something and maybe gives me more, gives me 2 of those things. Things started feeling very indifferentiated. Placing a banner or not placing a banner, using an effect that would give me something or another effect that would give me more or less the same thing, felt just all the same. But then from time to time somebody would complete a lap and it just felt a lot better than everything else. But also completely random because there's just a lot of things you can't control relative to where your watercraft is, based on where your the gate is, and what cards are played. So first, again, the rewards felt just too similar, and I felt like I didn't feel even like having an incentive to really try hard. Almost like, let's see what happens, because I'm gonna get something, and again, more or less. There are moments in which I think, but if I can trigger a fruit festival now, that would be great. If I could win a race now and complete a lap, that would be great. But here's the other problem. So much randomness. I felt that the luck of the draw was just trumping everything else. Yes, I wanted to plan and do all of these things. And in the first card play or 2, I could do that. But then I'm left with like maybe 4 cards of the same color. And so the fact that I'm going to most likely lose or most likely win or most likely somewhere in the middle, at this point has been dictated by my hand of cards. Or maybe it's 2 colors, but they're 2 colors that are adjacent. And again, that means those 2 colors are likely to lose or likely to win or likely to be somewhere in the middle. And that is based on the position of the gate, which is controlled by so many other factors. And so it happens to me that the second half of a round, I could play a 5 blue or a 6 blue or a 7 blue or an 8 blue. That's not going to change likely where I'm in the ranking. Again, once in a while it will happen. Incidentally, again, that also felt anticlimactic because, well, then I get that reward instead of a reward, which again is almost the same. So the luck of the draw, the random element was really to me what killed my interest really, because ultimately I didn't realize I can build up to a strategy, create a synergy. I'm just responding to what the situation is, and in most cases I really can because I don't have anything in hand that gives me a decision between 2 different courses of action because my cards very often are almost the same. And so the decision feels irrelevant. The reward feels like it doesn't make much of a difference. And so that was my experience. That was like the first couple of card plays. I was very excited, and then the more I played, the more I realized that my strategy, if there is one, had almost entirely and completely been dictated by the cards that you get every time. And that's the idea. The luck of the draw to me dictates too much of gameplay, and doesn't really, and the system dictates which cards are valuable when, and there isn't really a lot that you can do to mitigate that. There isn't anything that you can do to mitigate. So win or lose, I feel like the game is almost playing itself. I'm sorry to sound harsh, but ultimately, I could not shake off the impression that this game is like rock, paper, scissors with more steps, more chaos, and less agency. Because in rock, paper, scissors, at least I can always choose among 3 possible symbols. Here I may have 2 different suits, or 1, and then I have less agency than in rock, paper, scissors. And that was my experience. Unfortunately, very disappointed with Tidal Blade's Banner Festival.